Welcome to Taiwan Report News Brief, news and analysis from Taiwan. I'm Donovan Smith. All right, up today on the show, the International Press Institute presses WHO to let in Taiwanese journalists. New proposed passport designs are being floated around, and there's some surprisingly upbeat business news. The KMT's plans to woo younger voters are starting to become a little clearer. The presidential spokesperson's shirt becomes the story. The Causeway Books founder from Hong Kong is under attack. And finally, Taiwan drops in World Press Freedom rankings. But of course, as always, up first, coronavirus news. Taipei Times. CECC reveals areas visited by sailors. The center sent texts to more than 200,000 people who had been to places visited by the infected sailors, urging them to practice self-health management. The Central Epidemic Command Center yesterday listed dozens of locations in 10 cities and counties visited by 24 sailors confirmed to have been infected with COVID-19. It also announced 2 new imported cases, both women in their 20s who'd studied abroad. In focus Taiwan, face masks can soon be ordered at convenience stores. Under the new program, the masks will be available for order during specified time frames in the future as announced by the government rather than on a daily basis. Now, this applies to all the 4 major convenience stores chains where you can place orders using the self-service kiosks at convenience stores from 8 a.m. Wednesday to 8 p.m. Friday. Those placing orders will have to present their national health insurance cards and pay for the masks with the order. They will be able to pick up their mask between April 30th and May 13th at their designated convenience store. Continuing in the Taipei Times, daily necessities in good supply, Executive Yuan. Domestic supplies of commodity goods such as toilet paper, instant noodles, rice, fertilizer, and pork are sufficient. The Executive Yuan said yesterday, adding that the nation's production capacity remains stable despite the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, it goes on to list that there are, for example, with instant noodles, there's an adequate supply and that local factories are capable of manufacturing 4 million boxes per month. People should not worry about toilet paper, as the 4 major tissue paper providers in Taiwan can produce a combined 8 million boxes with 8 rolls in each box. There are 167 tons of wheat, which is enough for 5.5 months of domestic consumption. About 1.8 million barrels of soybean salad oil are produced each month, adding there are 729,000 tons of soybeans available, enough for 4.1 months of domestic consumption. There are 900,000 tons of rice in the National Reserve, with another 1.2 million scheduled to be added over the next 6 months, adding that the total amount would be enough to feed the nation for 21 months. In focus Taiwan, 2 admirals removed from posts over COVID-19 infections on ship. 2 Navy admirals have been removed from their posts pending further investigation into responsibility for a cluster COVID-19 coronavirus infection on a naval ship that has so far left 27 people infected with the virus, the nation's defense chief announced yesterday. Now, they are being punished for negligence that resulted in the cluster infections on a vessel that was part of a flotilla that visited the Pacific island of Palau, the defense minister announced. They are deemed to be responsible for the infections as they had failed to follow regulations in carrying out pandemic prevention measures on the 3-ship flotilla that visited Palau last month. Some of the crew members did not wear surgical face masks at all times during the visit to Palau. Also, the fleet commander already knew that a number of crewmen had developed fever during the month-long trip, but did not report to his superiors as he should have. That's all quite embarrassing. Now, also there were 5 visits for medical service on the trip, and 5 of them were for fevers and 10 for upper respiratory tract symptoms. Moving on, Focus Taiwan, the legislature passes bill to triple COVID-19 bailout funds. Taiwan's legislature on Tuesday gave the green light to an amendment bill to increase funding for response, relief, and revitalization during the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic from 60 billion NT to 210 billion NT. The bill, put forth by the ruling DPP caucus, cleared the legislature floor after three versions by other party caucuses were voted down. Moving on, now this is a press release here from the International Press Institute. IPI urges WHO to grant accreditation to Taiwan journalists, reads the headline. The International Press Institute, a global network of editors, media executives, and leading journalists for press freedom, called on the World Health Organization to grant accreditation to Taiwanese journalists. Now, below, there's the full text of the letter, and I'm just going to extract a little part of that. Now, this is addressed to Dr. Tedros, the head of WHO. We welcome your statement that COVID-19 should not be politicized, and we expect that the WHO will implement this in both letter and spirit by granting accreditation to journalists from Taiwan and allowing them to fully participate in WHO activities, thereby delivering valuable lessons learned from Taiwan. Health and the right to information transcend political and geographical boundaries. The Constitution of the World Health Organization states, the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of health is one of the fundamental rights of every human being without distinction of race, religion, political belief, economic, or social condition. It also states that the extension to all peoples of the benefits of medical, psychological, and related knowledge is essential to the fullest attainment of health. We believe that by refusing accreditation to Taiwanese journalists and denying access to information to the people of Taiwan, the WHO is not just violating its founding principles, but also undermining UN Sustainable Development Goal 3 on ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being for all ages. Moving on, in the Taipei Times, lawmaker reveals 3 passport design proposals. Now, these are just proposals, so, but he's throwing out ideas there. And as I mentioned the other day, from a local report, the NPP has started a design competition, so there's a lot of this floating around now. Now, a DPP lawmaker unveiled 3 design proposals at a meeting of the Legislative Yuan's Foreign Affairs and National Defense Committee. The proposals were in response to a debate about whether to emphasize Taiwan and de-emphasize China in the wording on the cover. Chung proposed designs, including one with no English wording at all, which keeps the overall design of the current passport. That's the insignia of the country, which is on the flag, which is very, very similar, but theoretically, technically not the same as the KMT emblem. Another replaced the national emblem with a map of the main island of Taiwan and had the words Taiwan Passport in large lettering on the top and Republic of China in smaller lettering on the bottom, both in Chinese and English. The third design replaced the national emblem with an image of a cup of bubble tea and had only the words Taiwan Passport in English and Chinese. Now, this meeting, which was attended by officials of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, he said that the use of the word China on the passport had caused problems for Taiwanese traveling abroad, as they have been mistaken for Chinese nationals. Now, neither the National Emblem Act nor the enforcement rules of the Passport Act stipulate that the passport must display the national emblem. However, the enforcement rules of the Passport Act does prohibit individual passport owners from modifying the graphics on their passports or adding new graphics without authorization. Asked whether the ministry has the authority to change the cover of the passport, the Deputy Ministry of Foreign Affairs said, quote, that should be the case. Now, the lawmaker said that there was no need to have the nation's name written in English or a national symbol on the cover of the passport, citing examples from countries like Germany and Switzerland, which have English only for the word passport, and France, which has no English on its passport cover at all. Now, in the Taiwan news here, we have photo of the day, Taiwan bubble tea passport. And this is just cute. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see this. A Taiwanese artist has created some whimsical designs based on bubble tea. They're very, very adorable. One that makes it look like the whole thing is a cup with a bunch of bubbles at the bottom, and in the word passport, the O is one of the little bubbles, and another one which just has it says passport Taiwan, and then in the center it has an image, a cute little cartoon image of bubble milk tea, and then there's of course inside the O on passport there is a little bubble. So anyway, they're probably way too cute for passports, but hey, Taiwan is one of the world leaders in cute. In the Taipei Times, legislators to join KMT Institute as party seeks to attract younger talent. All right, so stick with me here. KMT legislators Jiang Wanan, Heng Mongkai, and William Tseng are on a list of 20 party members joining the KMT's Institute of Revolutionary Practice as teachers, the KMT announced yesterday. Now, Institute Director Luo Zhiqiang said he would continue to look for more people, including KMT members and outside experts in various fields, to join the Institute as teachers. He called it a training unit. Now, bringing in people like Jiang Wanan is a good call. He's fairly young, he's fairly popular, he's considered very good looking. So this is, okay, so far so good. This looks good. Now, they said that they hope it'll bring more young people to the party. And while in the past the Institute focused on training young people within the KMT, it now invites everyone to take part in its events, according to a Taipei city councilor. Luo said the Institute is to hold its first event tonight, the first in a series of talks called Future Salon. Okay, so far so good, right? So then we can go on to what their first of their series of talks is in their Future Salon. The discussion is to feature former President Ma Ying-jeou and KMT Chairman Johnny Chang, he said, adding that it is to be live streamed online from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. So that's right, folks. In a bid to appeal to younger voters, they reached out as their inaugural guest. They got former President Ma Ying-jeou, who very famously managed to seemingly offend the vast majority of the younger generation who rose up in the Sunflower Movement. Good call, guys. Now, for an older audience, Ma Ying-jeou probably would be a respectable guest, but for younger audiences, poor choice. Moving on, the topic is the future of Taiwan under the COVID-19 pandemic, he added. Institute teachers are to speak in future discussions, adding that in addition to 2 main speakers, discussions would also include a host, an expert, and 3 to 5 young audience members. Formerly named the National Development Research Institute, the Institute reverted to its original name in 2017. Moving on to the Diplomat. What explains the March 2020 surge in Taiwan's export orders? Taiwan has already received a lot of attention, as it notes here. Now, it moves on to say now the economic consequences of Taiwan's successful handling of COVID-19 are starting to become clearer. On Monday, new economic data from Taipei showed something surprisingly positive. Export orders were up, with a 4.3% increase year on year. The surprise was that the expectation of most market analysts was a 10.15% decline. The positive turnaround probably isn't explained fully by Taiwan's own internal handling of COVID-19. But part of the story with the new economic data likely has to do with importers around the world looking to diversify supply chain risk from China. It just so happens that Taiwan, with its internal house in order, appears to be a safer short-term bet than Asia's other alternatives, including South Korea, Japan, and Southeast and South Asian countries. Part of the story is also Taiwan's unique strength in semiconductors and value-added electronics manufacturing. Taiwanese silicon foundries are up and running, and despite a slowdown in everything from commodities to services, demand for semiconductors remains high around the world. Moving on to the Financial Times, Taiwan's early success against coronavirus cushions economy. As economists rewrite their forecast to reflect the doom created by the coronavirus pandemic, one country has come off relatively lightly. In schools, offices, restaurants, and most entertainment facilities in Taiwan remain open. International tourists are gone, but locals do travel. And this makes a big difference, is a quote here. We are learning now that the economic cost of a 1-month lockdown is a 3% contraction of full-year GDP. Taiwan avoided that. Taiwan can avoid some of the worst economic pains. They also note that the pandemic has had little impact on Taiwan's manufacturing industry so far. Now, the IMF forecasts that Taiwan will contract by 4% this year, but everyone else, S&P says a decrease of 1.2%, but the government here locally expects that Taiwan will actually grow this year. However, in the Taipei Times, the headline reads, "Public confidence in economy dips." Public confidence in the economy slid further last month amid concern that the nation's export-oriented economy would fall prey to the rapidly escalating COVID-19 pandemic, Cathay Financial Holding Company said yesterday. A total of 87% of respondents thought the economic situation had deteriorated from 6 months ago, compared with 70% a month earlier. Moving on to the KMT official website, which quotes an article from the UDN. The headline reads, "KMT lambasts presidential office spokesman for wearing T-shirt depicting a hand lighting an ROC flag on fire." While responding to queries by the media at the presidential office yesterday concerning a cluster of 24 COVID-19 infections on a 3-ship flotilla, Ding Yun-gong, spokesman of the presidential office, wore a T-shirt depicting a hand lighting an ROC flag on fire. A KMT legislator lambasted that as a spokesman representing the president. Ding, nevertheless, was being so contemptuous of the national flag. Following the criticisms, Ding immediately responded by saying that some misunderstandings were elicited by the print on his T-shirt, explaining that this was a T-shirt of a contemporary Taiwan drama with the theme of the progression of democratization in Taiwan. Ding went on to add that the protest scene depicted on the T-shirt aimed not to hold the nation in contempt, but to show that democracy was not easily earned. Well, that's excellent sentiment, and in any other context than being a spokesperson for the presidential office, that would be fine. But if you wear a T-shirt and you're the spokesperson for the presidential office and you become the story because of a flag, of the country's flag being burned, much as I dislike the flag, having it burned on a T-shirt is not a good look for a presidential spokesperson. Focus Taiwan, some bad news. Hong Kong Causeway Bay Books founder splashed with paint in Taipei, and it gets worse. The founder, Lam Wing-ki, founder of Hong Kong's Causeway Bay Books, was attacked Tuesday morning by 2 unidentified men who threw red paint at him while he was at a coffee shop in Taipei. Now, this took place near the Zhongshan MRT station, near his new bookstore, which is scheduled to open Saturday. Lam, who immediately notified the police, said the suspects were wearing baseball caps and appeared to be in their 30s. They fled the scene on foot after splashing him with red paint. Now, he said it's hard to imagine this sort of thing in Taiwan, adding that he believed the attack was orchestrated by authorities in China. Obviously, it was a threat, warning me not to open my bookstore. Now, the Zhongshan Police District said it was reviewing video footage from surveillance cameras in the area to identify and find the attackers. The incident occurred 1 day after Lam received a legal warning from a bookstore in New Taipei, telling him he was infringing on its trademark by giving his store a similar name in Chinese. Lam, however, expressed doubts about the company in the city's Zhonghe area, saying it probably was a fake entity fronting for Chinese authorities. Late Monday, the Mainland Affairs Council, Taiwan's agency responsible for cross-strait relations, said in a text message that law enforcement would investigate the matter to determine whether the Chinese Communist Party or its affiliates were behind the legal challenge. In Focus Taiwan, Taiwan ranks 43rd in 2020 World Press Freedom Rankings, down 1 place. Now, despite the regression, Taiwan is one of just 4 countries in the Asia-Pacific region that fall in the good and fairly good categories, following New Zealand at 9th, Australia at 26th, South Korea at 42nd. Uh-oh. Taiwan is 43rd, one place behind South Korea. And of course, politicians here and the press love to compare Taiwan to South Korea. So that is going to cause some stir and some annoyance. Now, in its analysis on press freedom in Taiwan, the RSF said political interference there is rare and less tolerated, but Taiwan's journalists are suffering from a very polarized media environment dominated by sensationalism and the pursuit of profit. Also warns on Chinese-led disinformation campaigns. And that's it for today's show. Be sure to hit subscribe and hit the bell if you're on YouTube. That's the fastest way to get the show. As always, these English articles will all be put up on Taiwan Report, which is report.tw. Look forward to tomorrow.
This has been brought to you by the Taiwan Report. For more content like this, become our patron at report.tw.
哎呦，就是那个台湾狗啦，最喜欢我的台湾狗了。